Thread that seems to be running through the show for the last hour and a half. Doesn't matter, every topic, the old expression, all roads lead to Rome. All roads in this show seem to lead to lack of sleep, to sleep deprivation. Even Jodie Emery, who was booked by yours truly earlier today to talk about the Prince of Pot, her husband, Marc Emery, being released from a Mississippi prison later this week after serving a 5-year sentence. Even Jodie Emery is tying into sleep deprivation because, Jodie, I guess you flew into Vancouver early this morning, and based on your tweets, you haven't slept yet.
Yeah, that's right. I was supposed to land at midnight. That's my usual trip home. Monday I get home at midnight, but flight delays kept me in Houston, and I landed at 3:30 and got into bed at 4:20 and decided just to stay up.
All right, and of course you had all these media engagements, so it's kind of difficult to sleep when people like me are constantly bothering you.
Well, I did hear your tweet on my iPad, and I wouldn't have gotten it if I had got to sleep, so I'm happy to be on the show.
Yeah, I was tweeting earlier that despite her sleep deprivation, she'll be joining us. Now, of course, earlier when we were talking about sleep deprivation, one of the symptoms is zoning out and being unfocused. And, of course, for many, many years, the Prince of Pot and his philosophy, one of the reasons there were attacks and accusations wasn't just the business about the law, but it was the business about the medicine and the idea that people who constantly smoke pot will be unfocused just as people are who don't get enough sleep.
Well, and there are hundreds of thousands of pharmaceutical drugs out there that say these will make you drowsy, do not operate heavy machinery or drive, and yet people take those pills every day, all day, and they're still out there functioning.
All right, so let me just take it from sleep deprivation to a focus on your particular issue with Marc Emery. Peel it back by about 5 years, Jodie. Why did your husband go to jail?
Well, in 2005, the U.S. government came into Canada and had Marc arrested with Vancouver police, even though Marc never went to the United States. And the DEA said it was because he was giving money to legalization groups. Their press release didn't even mention the seeds. It was all about the money and legalization activism. So Marc was facing a mandatory minimum of 30 years in a country he never even went to. So when he got a 5-year plea deal offered in 2009, he accepted it, and in May 2010, the conservative government sent him down to Seattle, Washington, where people are buying pot starting today.
So it would, I guess, seem to a lot of people that if we had the current environment where, and we just ran a story on the news about pot sales in Seattle, and the other day we were running a piece about how many people are buying pot in Colorado, not smoking but eating it, pot edibles. If this particular environment existed 5 years ago today, Marc, your husband, Marc Emery, never would have gone to prison.
Well, Marc is actually responsible for what's happening today. In Colorado, the people behind that campaign actually met him long ago. We covered them in magazines in 2006, way before this was ever on the table. And they've gone forward and made all of this happen. He also sent $15,000 to Colorado in 2000 for their medical marijuana so they could have plants. And in Washington State, his own prosecutor, John McKay, changed sides, testified for legalization beside me in the Washington State Legislature, and became a sponsor of the legalization bill with Marc and I as official endorsers. So Marc sent millions of seeds and dollars to Americans in every U.S. state, and the Drug Enforcement Administration admits they tracked all the money he made. It all was given away, and it was all given to political activists. So, when Marc started selling seeds 20 years ago, when High Times was still illegal in Canada, Washington and Colorado and even California had nothing of medical, no decrim. It was just a barren landscape. But Marc is definitely a man who can be given some credit for where we are today, and a lot of Americans will say so.
We're talking to Jodie Emery. She's a public speaker, as you can gather. She's a political activist. She happens to be the wife of Marc Emery and the owner of Cannabis Culture, headquartered in Vancouver. So it's fair to say that you and Marc both believe that it is your activism that is directly responsible for marijuana laws being softened in the country, especially in places like Colorado and Washington. There's a cause and effect here, and you're a part of it.
Oh, Marc is certainly a big part of it. I mean, Marijuana Policy Project right now is a massive multi-million-dollar lobbying group in Washington, D.C., and they're changing medical laws all throughout the United States. 22 medical states, 17 decrim, and 2 legal, with Alaska, Oregon, and others voting on legalization this November. And Marc started funding that policy group back when they were going to shut down in 1998. So a lot of people will give him credit, but he didn't go to the United States. He sent them the seeds and the money, and his slogan was plant the seeds of freedom to overgrow the government, with the idea being instead of being forced to buy from gangsters like the government is making you do, you should be able to grow your own from these seeds. And when you send me the money, you know I'm giving it to patients in court cases and ballot initiatives and political parties. And again, the U.S. government confirmed all of that that was what he did. So Marc just wanted to make sure people weren't being punished by the government with their own tax dollars for a peaceful, nonviolent activity. And if there is any violence associated with marijuana, it's only through the prohibition of marijuana that the gangsters are allowed to control that whole industry instead of honest, hardworking Canadians.
It is ironic, though. I mean, maybe we're making too much of the numbers here, but I think it's ironic, Jodie Emery, that on the same day that your husband serves his final day of his 5-year sentence, that is the same day that the state that borders British Columbia, Washington, begins legal retail sales of marijuana. Now, is that just a coincidence, or is that the way Washington wanted it?
I wonder if somebody in that office decided, let's do this for Marc. I don't know. But I can tell you right now, I'm looking out my window. I can see Mount Baker in Washington State, and I'm looking at it, looking for those puffs of smoke to start rising. You know, it is ironic, but there are a lot of little ironies. Perhaps Marc will be brought across the border later this month. He doesn't get out immediately. He has to go to an immigration facility to await deportation for weeks or even months. But maybe he'll get across on the 23rd of this month, which is our 8-year wedding anniversary, or even better would be to come home on the 29th, the anniversary of the DEA raid back in 2005. That'd be fitting.
So I just don't want to get overly personal here, but you married Marc 3 years before he started serving his sentence. So for most of your marriage, Marc's been a prisoner.
Yes, that's true. I've been a drug war widow, as some people might call it. But, you know, I'll be honest, Marc and I being forced apart this way, very far apart. He's been down in Mississippi. You know, we've gotten close. Sorry, I've got a call coming in. We've gotten closer over this time through necessity. We've had to bond more emotionally close. And he has always said that in his absence, I would have to step up and become my own person, and I have done that in his absence. So that means when he comes home, we'll be an incredibly powerful team, perhaps, in terms of getting public support behind changing real policies, which has always been our goal anyway.
Jodie, just before I let you go, and I know you've got lots more media interviews to do today on this topic, can you bring it home for us to Canada and where we're going with marijuana policy? What's your take going forward?
Oh, well, ever since Marc went down to the U.S., they started moving forwards and we started going backwards. So the Harper Conservatives have increased all the punishments, including mandatory minimum prison sentences, which even the state of Texas told us not to do. Because really, when it comes down to it, prohibition is a policy that costs taxpayers billions of dollars in policing courts and prisons. And those tax dollars are very limited. We should be spending them on education and health care. And even worse, for the government to continue to allow gangsters to make billions of dollars with a policy that costs taxpayers billions of dollars. And then the human cost. I mean, I've been in these prisons. I've seen the little children trying so hard not to cry when they visit their daddy because the rest of the world tells them their daddy's a bad man. He's not a bad man. He sold some plants. And to see that kind of human cost, that kind of heartbreak and misery and suffering inflicted upon innocent little children, we have to end that. If marijuana is dangerous, making it illegal does not make it safer. And if we want to protect citizens and save our tax dollars and use them efficiently, ending prohibition is the only way to go so we can educate about safe, responsible use and put money back where it's supposed to be instead of being wasted like the Conservatives will do.
Do you and your husband expect to be campaigning with Justin Trudeau?
Well, we've decided to support the Liberals. I mean, if you want to go look at my interviews, I've been tough on Trudeau before. You know, I've said he used to support mandatory minimums. He voted in favor of them. But over the years, Trudeau has opened up his head and looked at the science, looked at the facts and public opinion, and he's changed his mind based on evidence. For me, when I look at a political leader, I don't care if they're left, right, or center because I don't pin myself anywhere like that. But Trudeau is actually talking to people. The Liberals are willing to listen. Harper, he hides away, and the Conservatives are pretty closed off. I mean, if the Conservatives wanted to save money and get rid of gangs' job market with marijuana and protect civil liberties by legalizing marijuana, I would have to say that's a great decision. Go Conservatives, I back you on that, because when it comes down to it, I defend principles of liberty instead of any specific party. And at this point, the Liberals offer a policy of legalization which will defend people's liberties. And for me, that's too important to pass up with all the years of misery we'll have otherwise.
I understand where you're coming from, and that's why I asked this question. Jodie Emery, wife of the Prince of Pot, Marc Emery. Has Justin Trudeau's team reached out to you to campaign with him during the next campaign?
Not his team, and I'll be honest, I've never met Trudeau or communicated with him. I've never seen the guy. Apparently he's pretty cute. But when I was asked to run, it was by the Vancouver East Liberal Riding Association, because they've held town halls and meetings discussing legalization and invited me just as an advocate to come speak. So after a few years of looking at the way they've been changing, I decided to join the Liberal Party only about a month ago, upon being asked to put my name in, because even if I don't get into office myself, it's really important for me to get these ideas of civil liberties, responsible government, fiscal management, all of this. I want to just talk about it at the least, and if those ideas can get into government, if not me, well, then that's really my goal.
So just give me the news aspect of this in terms of ridings, Jodie Emery. Which riding in the Vancouver area are you considering making a run for?
It's Vancouver East. Now, it is the riding held by Libby Davies of the NDP, and she is honestly the best supporter Marc and I have had all these years. She's been a role model of a member of Parliament, representing the riding so well for so long. And again, she has stood up for me and Marc since day one on this issue, and we're looking at over 9 years of her helping us out, at least speaking to the issue. So I know she's a bit shocked that I would choose to run against her, as you might say. But for me, it's not really running against her. I can't say a bad thing about Libby Davies, but I do know that the NDP under Thomas Mulcair has kind of muzzled their MPs. They're a little nervous about pot policy and a lot of things that Libby Davies has worked for. So again, I need to get these ideas into government, and I know Libby believes in what I believe in. She wants it to be legal. She has spoken on that, privately perhaps, but she can't get anything done if her leader won't let her speak on the issue, and that's the way it seems to be going. So I just want to be there kind of saying, hey, let's not talk about attacking each other in election campaigns. Let's talk about ideas and policies and protecting our citizens and saving our tax dollars, and that's something we can all agree on.
All right, so would I be accurate in saying that Jodie Emery has decided that she wants to run for the nomination for the Liberal Party for Justin Trudeau's Liberals in Vancouver East?
You can say that's true, because it is. I've sent in my request for the big nomination package, and I'm just waiting for that to show up, and I can begin going through the process. Now, there is a nomination race. There will be someone else trying to be the candidate, too, maybe a few other people. So I'm going to have to work hard in the coming months to rally up support to get me out there as a candidate. But again, even if I don't make it, if I'm not the candidate, Marc and I are still going to ask people to please support the Liberal Party in the next election, because I'm a capitalist. I'm a fiscal conservative. You know, I believe in small government and civil liberties. And if the Harper Conservatives believed in those things too, again, I might have to say, good job. You know, I back you guys on that. But Harper is not acting responsibly as a real conservative, and I can't stand the idea of more families being forced to suffer like I've had to under such punitive, outdated laws, which again are going to be moot in a while. Washington is legal. Alaska is going to be legal this November. Oregon, many states. So the Harper government would rather spend billions of dollars maintaining a policy that has clearly failed. And if a different government can come into place that can change that, I'm all for it.
Last question. I just have one last question. We've got we're tight on time here, Jodie Emery. So should you run in Vancouver East, and should Justin Trudeau sign your nomination papers, and should Justin Trudeau emerge as the victor, and should he be choosing you in cabinet, would you prefer justice to health or health to justice? What cabinet portfolio would Jodie Emery like to have?
Well, I think people can look at my record. I'm a critic of policing and spying and the justice system. We know that our courts are wasting a lot of money. 75% of federal court resources are on drug cases. That's a lot of hospital beds we could make for our elderly and school positions we could open up. So, yeah, I'm definitely in favor of legalizing it just to help out society in such a huge way we can't even calculate. There's so many benefits ahead.
Jodie, thank you very much, and good luck to you.
Thanks so much.
And give our best to Marc Emery.
I will.
Thanks very much. Jodie Emery is the wife of Marc Emery, the Prince of Pot. Jodie Emery has announced here that she'll be running for the Liberals in Vancouver East should she win the nomination, but she is seeking it. That is a riding right now held by Libby Davies, and who knows, someday the person you just heard here on 680 CJOB may be a justice minister in the Canadian government.